This episode of the Tolkien Road is made possible by To Middle-earth and Back Again, a new companion journal and devotional by Caitlin Fascista of Tea with Tolkien. Chapter by chapter, grow in hobbitness and holiness as you reflect on major themes, quotes, and characters from The Lord of the Rings. To Middle-earth and Back Again explores Tolkien's Catholic faith and the influence it had on his writings, inspiring you to reflection and action as you seek to carry the spirit of Middle-earth into your own daily lives through journaling prompts, discussion topics, and tangible action items. Journey alongside Frodo, Samwise, and the other members of the Fellowship of the Ring as they each play their parts in the War of the Ring. And as they come to the final chapters of their tale, you may find yourself altogether changed as well. For more information, head on over to teawithtolkien.com/book. Once again, that's teawithtolkien.com/book. The Tolkien Road, Episode 148, The Hobbit, Chapter 5, Riddles in the Dark. All right, go ahead. The Tolkien Road, 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 the Tolkien Road. Hey there, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Tolkien Road, a long walk through Middle-earth. On this episode, we continue our journey through The Hobbit with Chapter 5, Riddles in the Dark. Before we get started, please head on over to iTunes and leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback. It's a great way to show your support for the show and takes less than a minute. You can also stop by TolkienRoad.com, learn about previous episodes, and say hey. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/TolkienRoad and on Twitter via @TolkienRoad. Thanks for listening and enjoy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tolkien Road. John here. Greta.
Hey, hey.
What's new?
Yeah, not a whole lot.
Riddle me this.
Riddle you what?
Riddle me that.
Riddle you...
Who's afraid of the big... I didn't even get it right. Who's afraid of the big black bat? Do you remember that from like the 90s?
I do not.
That was Batman Forever.
I don't think I ever saw it.
It was either Batman Forever or Batman Rich. It was, it was when the franchise really started going downhill. And I think it was Jim Carrey played the Riddler.
You mean the Joker?
Mm-hmm. And I remember, I never saw the movie actually. No, the Riddler, not the Joker. Don't you know the difference between the Joker and the Riddler?
They're two different, no. Mm-mm.
Unbelievable.
Wait, isn't the Joker is in Batman though?
Jack Nicholson played the Joker in the original. Well, not in the original, but like in the 1989 movie when they tried to make a big blockbuster movie, and that was pretty good. And then the Riddler is a different bad guy.
I didn't know there was a Riddler. I only know the Joker. Is this where I get fired?
Again, how many times have you been fired now? Man,
I lost count too.
So The Hobbit, Chapter 5, Riddles in the Dark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a great chapter.
It's so fun.
One of the best chapters in the book.
Agreed.
And of course it introduces the magnificent Gollum. Magnificently bad, pitiful,
pathetic,
memorable Gollum.
Brilliant.
Gollum.
Brilliant Gollum.
Gollum. I can't do the Gollum
Mm-hmm.
voice very well. I'm probably going to make people throw up when they're listening to it.
Yep.
Trying to do it into the microphone. Okay, so let's talk about Chapter 5.
Let's do it.
So Bilbo had fallen, right? They were running from they're running from the goblins,
right,
under the mountain, under the Misty Mountains.
Yep.
And Bilbo had fallen off of. It wasn't clear whether it was Bomber or Dwalin's back.
Yeah, there was a bit of confusion.
Well, it was clear, but it was unclear how he came to one to the other's back. Let's see. It was he fell off of Dory's back. Whereas we were confused because we never figured when he transferred from Bomber's to Dory's back. But maybe they were just all taking turns because it'd probably be kind of heavy to carry a hobbit on your back while you're running from goblins. Mm-hmm. So you don't want anybody to tire out, so you got to kind of share the responsibility.
Right.
Anyway, he falls, and it's in the pitch black, and he bumps his head on a hard rock. And apparently the dwarves are just kind of like, I guess we got to leave them behind. Or they tried looking for them.
Yeah, what's up with that?
I think we'll catch back up with the dwarves later on in a different chapter. We can maybe ask them about that. But for whatever reason, he is there by himself now. No goblins, no dwarves, no Gandalf, nobody nearby. Or so he thinks.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. However, there is one important object lying nearby. And that is Sauron's ring. Of course, he doesn't know it is Sauron's ring right now. But that is indeed what it is. It says, very slowly he got up and groped about on all fours till he touched the wall of the tunnel, but neither up nor down it could he find anything. Nothing at all, no sign of goblins, no sign of dwarves. His head was swimming, and he was far from certain even of the direction they had been going in when he had his fall. He guessed as well as he could and crawled along for a good way, till suddenly his hand met what felt like a tiny ring of cold metal lying on the floor of the tunnel. It was a turning point in his career, but he did not know it. He put the ring in his pocket almost without thinking. Certainly it did not seem of any particular use at the moment. So, yeah, it's a fortuitous moment.
Indeed.
Providential moment.
Yes.
I always use that word, fortuitous, and then I have to look it up to make sure I used it right. You ever do that? You have any words like that?
That I use, and then I have to check and make sure I used it correctly.
Did I just sound like a complete idiot when I used that word in the wrong context?
Yeah. I do have those.
Yeah, happening by accident or chance rather than design. Informal, happening by a lucky chance. Fortunate. So,
it's kind of like serendipitous.
Yeah, I used it correctly.
Yep.
Pat on the back for me.
Is serendipitous a synonym? I think it should be. If it's not.
It is.
Oh, well, there you go.
Good answer, Greta.
On a roll.
Good answer. Good answer. Survey says, ding.
Awesome.
Nicely done.
Thank you. I'll take it.
All right.
So, yes, finding of the ring is definitely fortuitous and serendipitous and providential.
Yeah.
And coincidental.
Mm-hmm.
And inadvertent.
Yeah.
And unforeseen.
All of the above.
All of the above.
Heaven sent.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll just have to see if that turns out to be the case.
Yeah. Okay. So Bilbo, fortunately, he still has his little dagger too, just in case he gets into any further trouble.
Yep.
And so he's waking up all groggy, right? We've all woken up like that before. Maybe not from bumping our heads on hard rock, but feeling like you may have bumped your head on a hard rock.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a place I'd like to be if I was like in this dark cave.
You're confused and disoriented, and
I would probably
alone.
I would probably just be like, I'm never finding my way out of this place again.
Yeah.
And you're under a mountain, for crying out loud.
Yep.
So,
it would be very easy to just give up.
Yeah.
But thankfully for us, Bilbo does not, or else our story would be rather short.
Yes. Well, that would be the end of the episode if he had.
Yep.
Gosh, darn Garshnart, looks like I'm done. Looks like I'm done for.
Done for.
Yeah. Okay. So he wanders about a bit, and, eventually we are introduced by the narrator to old Gollum, which is a small, slimy creature, right? Deep down here by the dark water lived old Gollum, a small, slimy creature. I don't know where he came from, nor who or what he was. Now, I get to that, and I put a big question mark next to it, because I'm like, how does this narrator not know where he came from, nor who or what he was? Because we learn later on in The Lord of the Rings quite a bit about him.
Right.
Right? So is that a bit disingenuous of the narrator to say that? Or if we're assuming, right, that Tolkien is the narrator of this story, right?
Yeah.
Is intending himself to be the narrator of this story. That's where that's where we get into some kind of fun, like literary kind of theory fun with narrators, right?
Okay.
So in literary theory, like literary analysis, there's this idea of the unreliable narrator, right? that just because a narrator tells you that something happened a certain way in a book doesn't always mean that that's exactly the way it happened, right?
Okay.
So, a famous example of that is Huckleberry Finn, right? Because Huckleberry Finn is the narrator of that story. He's also a character in the story. And there's a lot of questions as to whether he's always telling the truth about things that have happened, whether they happened exactly as he said they happened, right, in this particular story. So it's a fun little kind of meta device, right, that you can toy with. Now, I don't know that Tolkien initially intended that for this story, but we've talked before about who the narrator of this story actually is, right? Because I think I posited in one of the earlier episodes that, and we've talked about this a couple of times already, that this is Bilbo narrating, right? That he's almost like telling the story. This is his version of the story to Frodo, right? And maybe
like
other young hobbits.
After he's been through it, he's looking back and retelling. Right. Yeah.
Right, because obviously Tolkien knew quite a bit about who this character was, or at least in later revisions knew quite a bit about him, right?
Well, he would have to if he's writing the story.
Yeah, I mean, my point is, initially when the story was published, he might not have known. In fact, it's pretty clear he wasn't necessarily planning that Gollum would become this,
like a central
super important
figure.
character, right?
Okay.
But he actually revised, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but he actually revised the Hobbit in this chapter. This chapter was revised greatly on the second edition, right before The Lord of the Rings was published, in order to kind of set the stage for how important Gollum and the ring were for The Lord of the Rings.
Really?
Right? Yes.
So I guess we don't have that edition. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't have a copy of it, but luckily enough, we have the annotated Hobbit, which actually has most of the old version of this chapter within it as well, right? So it has the new version and the old version of the chapter.
Oh, so you can see where the difference is.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So I'll just put another plug for this book. If you really like The Hobbit, you should go buy this book. It's worth it with all of the different notes and artwork and those sorts of things contained therein. But anyway, there's a lot of interesting things to be said about this chapter that come from that particular book. I'm not going to mention all of them. There's 30 something footnotes just about this chapter alone within there, and we'll talk about a few of the interesting ones, really interesting ones. So
just real quick, back on the topic of the unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
So who is the narrator? Is it Bilbo or is it Tolkien?
It's never clear. It's never made clear. But my theory here is that Bilbo is the narrator, right?
Well, that would make sense because he truly wouldn't have known what Gollum was,
right? Especially at the point where he would have been putting the story together, and it makes sense, right? And you have the whole I never get it right. Red Book of West. I got to look this up.
Yes, because you didn't have it right the last episode either. You're talking about the book that he's writing that he gives to Frodo,
and then Frodo completes it, and then Frodo writes the Lord of the Rings portion of it, and then
he gives it to Sam.
Sam actually, I think it's the Red Book of West March. Yeah, the Red Book of West March, and.
So that's where the story is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is basically what Bilbo would have written in the Red Book of West March.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that this was like his, you have to assume that when Bilbo gets back from his adventure that he's going to tell people about these adventures, right? Okay. And he's going to tell what he knows, right? And I think we'll see that that's mostly what we get in this story, right? Yes. Even in here, he doesn't know a lot about Gollum, right? And anything he does gain in terms of knowledge either comes firsthand from his own experience with him, or maybe after talking with Gandalf about everything that happened, he's able to discern some things. We know that Bilbo and Gandalf talked a lot about where the ring came from, because Gandalf didn't know what the ring was at first, right? So there's a lot about that at the beginning in the prologue, I think, of The Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
And in some of the early chapters as well, right? So Gollum Bilbo. I think Bilbo is best understood to be the narrator here, right? This is Bilbo after he returns from his adventure, telling the story to his fellow Shire hobbits and Frodo and others like that, and then eventually kind of coming up with the this is how it all went down, right?
Yes.
So that's a long way of saying that I think it's important to maybe realize that maybe we best understand this story if we understand that it's Bilbo telling the story here later on. So I want to focus on a couple of notes from the annotated Hobbit here. So the first one that I thought was interesting was when Gollum is called a small, slimy creature. The reason I thought it was interesting is because apparently, let's see here. Let me get it pulled up here. Apparently, in the original version, it said it didn't include the part about being a small, slimy creature. Right?
So what do we have? We don't have the second edition, and we don't have the original. What do we have?
Well, we have like the final version of it, right? So I think the major revision was in 1951, right before Lord of the Rings came out.
Okay,
and,
got it.
And then 1966, there was another revision that was, I think, a little more minor, but that's the one that added the small slimy creature part. And it may seem like it's not that important, but apparently, and this is speculation from Douglas Anderson, who wrote the annotated Hobbit, he says that lots of the books, like lots of the Hobbit books that came out in different countries, actually had illustrations that depicted Gollum as like a big monster.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And Tolkien's like, no, that's not what I had in mind at all.
Right. He's like, no, he's a small, slimy creature. It says in the 1957 German edition, he is several times larger than Bilbo. His legs dangling over his boat are themselves longer than Bilbo is tall. In the 1962 Portuguese edition, he appears as a bearded and alarming-looking figure twice the size of Bilbo, while in the 1965 Japanese edition, he is like a large reptile, probably 3 times Bilbo's size.
Oh, my.
So, yeah, Godzilla Gollum.
So I was going to say, he's either somewhere like a Sasquatch kind of character, or he's like a Loch Ness Monster kind of thing.
Well, yeah, it's anybody's guess, right? It's anybody's guess, apparently.
Yeah.
And so, Anderson says, like, that's why he thinks that he added that little modifier being a small, slimy creature.
Yeah.
Right? So, so you can prevent that confusion in the future. You'd think, though, in 1965, the 1965 Japanese edition, that's 12 years after The Lord of the Rings had come out, in which Gollum figures prominently. And I would assume that they had a Lord of the Rings translation before that, so why would they make him why would they make him Godzilla? I don't know. That's weird.
No, they made him the reptile.
That's what I'm saying. A large reptile. That's what Godzilla is.
I thought Godzilla was an ape.
No, that's King Kong.
Jeez, I'm all confused. Really? Godzilla?
Yeah.
Was he like a crocodile?
Hold on, people. I got to pull this up for Greta so that she's not too confused.
Man. I don't... This is too much. I really thought King Kong and Godzilla were the same person. Oh, he is a crocodile.
Yeah, he's a big dinosaur, basically.
Dinosaur.
Yeah.
Huh.
And King Kong is the ape.
Okay.
Giant ape. Yeah.
Thanks for setting me straight.
You're good.
All right. Well, yeah, that is weird. I wonder what there was there must not have been much in the Lord of the Rings then to lead them to think otherwise about Gollum. I'm trying to think about.
No, there's plenty. I mean, that he's in there. Like you can just think about him following around, like
creeping after them.
Yeah, I don't want to do a deep dive on it, but I would be shocked to find out that there was not good indication that he was not a large reptile creature. A reptile. I mean, he just tells in Lord of the Rings that he comes from a race of people who are basically proto hobbits, right?
Oh, yep, true.
Well, he talks about the Stores, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the race that Gollum comes from. But anyway, I mean, they're basically hobbits.
Yeah.
Right?
That is bizarre.
So, anyway.
Well, good on Tolkien for setting them straight.
Yeah, huh?
Small people. Small.
And not reptile. Slimy.
Well, slimy can be reptile.
Yeah.
Reptiles are slimy.
Yeah.
Yes. So really the only thing that the Japanese had wrong was the size.
Are reptiles slimy?
Yes.
I thought that
Oh,
was
wait.
wrong.
Are those amphibians?
I think amphibians might be.
Well, what is a snake?
It's a reptile.
Yeah.
But they're not, if you actually touch a snake, which I know you never would because you hate snakes.
I do hate snakes.
They're like, I don't think they're slimy. They just their skin is real smooth.
No, it's very wet.
No.
Yep. Pretty sure. Frogs. Frogs are slimy.
Frogs are amphibians.
Oh, they're amphibians. I always get them mixed up. Oh, yeah, crocodiles are reptiles, and they're not slimy. Right?
I have never touched a crocodile because I don't want to die.
Oh. Smart. Very smart. Okay. Well, yeah. Well,
I came close to touching an alligator once, and I almost died when I did.
That's true. So you learned your lesson.
I did. But that's a story for another time.
For another time.
Children. Okay. So, yeah. And then let's talk about the word Gollum. This was cool. This was really cool. I did not know this until now. Also in this chapter from the annotated Hobbit, it has this little footnote. This is footnote 8. In the first edition of The Hobbit, Gollum uses the phrase, "my precious," to refer only to himself. In the second edition, 1951, in which Gollum's role was significantly altered, the phrase might be taken to refer to the ring, as is often the case in The Lord of the Rings. The Old Norse word "goll" means gold. In the oldest manuscripts, it is spelled Goll. One inflected form would be golem, gold, treasure, something precious. It can also mean ring, as is found in the compound word frengol, finger ring, points that may have occurred to Tolkien. So golem is literally, and linguistically, Tolkien. It seems like Tolkien probably pulled that from this old Norse word for ring,
For gold, okay.
right? For precious ring, basically,
Huh.
right? Which I just thought was fascinating because I just thought Gollum was just some kind of random word that he came up with because it had this guttural sound, right?
And there was kind of the noise that he makes with his throat, right?
Yeah, but I mean, that's how Tolkien rolls, right? He finds,
Yeah.
you think
Little
he's just making stuff
linguistic
up, but
nuances.
he's just playing with his love of language and doing cool things like that.
That is really cool.
It turns out Gollum is like this weird, is this word for ring, right?
Yeah, precious.
Precious ring, yeah.
Huh.
Which again, I just found fascinating that's the word that he that kind of represents his enslavement to this object, right?
Yeah.
And the name that he comes to be known by.
Because it's the name he's always saying.
Right.
Because he is enslaved to it.
Yeah. But it's this weird thing because it's almost like it's another, you see this a lot in the Lord of the Rings, but it's almost like it's this other, like, it's this id coming out within him, right? As opposed to the ego, right?
You're getting all psycho.
Well, just saying like
me.
the different, this like bad part of his personality, or it's like this evil spirit possessing him or something like that, right?
Yeah.
That it's a, it's a fracture in his personality where this Gollum creature, right, wants to kind of rule over him, right?
Yeah.
So
that's very interesting.
Anyway, I thought that was super cool.
That is super cool.
So another reason to buy Douglas Anderson's. This is becoming one long commercial for Douglas Anderson's annotated Hobbit here. But it's worth it. It's a really good book. Let's see. Another interesting thing is that in Gollum in 1937 edition, there's a lot when he lays out there's a big portion of this chapter that's just like very different from what we currently have. Excuse me. That's very different from what we currently have. And one of the things is that Gollum comes off seeming a lot more sympathetic in the 1937 edition. He's a lot less, he's still threatening because he wants to eat Bilbo, but he plays by the rules. He actually, we'll get to this at the end of the Riddle Game, but at the end of the Riddle Game, when he loses, right, he's all plotting how he's actually going to still kill Bilbo and eat him.
Right.
But in the 1937 edition, Gollum basically is like, well, it's the Riddle Game. What are you going to do? I lost. Darn it. Would have loved to taste some of that Bilbo flesh, but it ain't happening. All right. And so he just
shows Bilbo the way out.
And then he actually intends to give him the ring. Right? He actually intends to give him the ring, but he's already lost it. So, and Bilbo kind of rationalizes that he doesn't need to tell him that he found it because he was going to give it to him anyway. Right? Because he wanted fair and
Bilbo's
square.
going to give
Gollum was going to give Bilbo the ring. He basically, the bargain in the 1937 edition was that they were going to, if Gollum won, he would get to eat Bilbo, right? And if Bilbo won, then Gollum would give him a special, basically a special surprise, like a special present.
Oh, but Gollum didn't know he had lost the ring.
Right.
I see.
Even in the 1937 edition, he didn't know he had lost the ring.
I see. Okay.
And so he comes back and he's upset because he's like, I'm so sorry I lost the present I was going to give to you, right?
My God.
So,
That is
so Tolkien had to revise it significantly. But even there becomes this, if you recall from reading, from reading the early parts of Lord of the Rings, which I know was a long time ago for us now on the podcast, we talked about how Tolkien actually works that into the into setting the stage for the Lord of the Rings, because he uses it to show that Bilbo actually lied in his telling of the story about how he came upon the ring. So that's in the edition of The Hobbit that we have, where Bilbo, Bilbo, you could argue doesn't come by the ring completely righteously, even though it kind of comes to him, right? I think the point that is made in The Lord of the Rings is that Bilbo, the ring had already started to work on Bilbo in order to make it seem more legitimate that he had won it fair and square, right? That he had won the ring fair and square, right?
Okay.
So the 1937 edition of the story is Bilbo's story, right? It's the one he told, but it's a little bit fabricated, right, in that aspect, right? And then the one we have that most people read is The Hobbit now is the actual record of what actually happened. So you could argue maybe that Frodo later on, right, if you're getting into the frame narrative thing, right, that Frodo, after he finds out the true story, goes back and edits the story to get it, to get what actually happened, right?
Okay.
So,
yeah. Well, how about that?
Well,
it's kind of interesting.
It is really interesting. So, yeah, annotated Hobbit, cool again.
Yeah.
And then, and then I just thought it was funny, like the sucking eggs thing with the grandmother. Like, you remember what I'm talking about? The grandmother. We'll come back and talk about that because we got to talk about the riddles. So anyway, I just want to hit those topics from those differences between the 1937 and later editions of The Hobbit. So Bilbo meets Gollum, right? He meets him here in this cave underwater.
Yep.
And we learn a little bit about who Gollum is. He's pretty familiar to most of us by now. Probably don't need to reiterate too much about what he's actually like. But we do find out that he likes riddles. And so Bilbo meets him. Bilbo's trying to find a way out. And he basically strikes a bargain that, hey, if you'll show me the way out, and Gollum respects him because he sees he has a sword.
Right.
He says, okay, look, if you will show me the way out, then let's play a game of riddles. If I win, you show me the way out. If I lose, you eat me, right?
No pressure, Bilbo.
Yeah.
No pressure.
And now I have to think that Bilbo probably wasn't planning to live up to his end of the bargain here either.
Yeah, no.
So I have to say I probably would not be living up to that end of the bargain. No. Darn, lost. Well, I guess you can eat me.
Yeah, right. I'm not going to fight at all. Just, you won fair and square. So.
Right. I tend just try not to get into, matches where the outcome could involve me being eaten.
Just evolve.
So.
Just try to evade any kind of situation where the end game could end in you being eaten.
Yes. It's a policy of mine.
That is a public service announcement.
Yes.
Just don't play a game.
Knowing is half the battle.
If you lose, you get eaten.
All right. So Gollum goes first in their little riddle game. And I just have to say, I think it's funny that they decided to have a riddle game to settle this.
Yeah, of all things.
I would, if somebody wanted to have a riddle game with me to decide something important, I would be like, no, because I'm going to lose.
Because first of all, I don't really know any riddles, and second of all, I'm really bad at figuring them out.
I've how many times have I read this book? And
I know, and you still don't know the answer.
And I'm like, what's the answer to this one again?
Yeah. I know, and I'm like trying to figure it out. Like, this doesn't make sense.
This is one of those things that makes me think, because is people living in the 21st century with all of our crazy technology and our high tech jobs and everything like that. and we're all, not all of us, but a lot of people are college educated and have even higher degrees than that. We all think we're so smart. And then I realized that, like, yeah, but maybe people, in centuries past were a lot smarter than we give them credit for, right?
Yes.
In different ways,
yes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
This is one of those moments where I'm like, we may be technically smart in certain things, but I feel like we're not as clever.
Yes.
I feel like we've lost our cleverness.
And our wittiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just our ability to, like, use our minds and be sharp with our minds.
Yes. That's why everybody should play Sudoku.
Sudoku.
It keeps your brain sharp. That's what I read anyway.
Well, that's why I do like doing crossword puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been a fan of Sudoku, but I do like doing crossword puzzles because for that very reason of, like, figuring out these little word puzzles, riddles. There are riddles in that. So I guess I am not bad at it, but some of them, like the New York Times, crazy
really
hard.
Yeah, really, really hard.
So, I think I'm sure there are plenty of clever people out there, but this makes me think that we're not, this is a reminder that just because you're technically smart at things doesn't mean you're really clever.
Right.
And there's different forms of smart.
There are. And you think about it, back in, like, when they didn't have all the technology that we have today, this is how a lot of people would pass the time, right? I mean, they'd read out loud, they'd do riddle games, because they didn't even have even the board games and stuff that we have today,
I mean,
like
it was
Scrabble.
like, how else are you going to decide if somebody's going to eat you?
Right.
Right? You play a game of riddles.
You play a game of riddles.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't have any jacks, right?
Right.
They didn't have any cards. Like, rock, paper, scissors had not been invented yet.
Right.
So they had to do riddles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what's your favorite of these riddles, Greta?
Oh, my favorite one. That's a good question. I'll have to think about it. Do you want to go ahead and tell me yours?
Well, I like them all. I think, though, I like one of the ones closer to the end. Alive without breath, as cold as death, never thirsty, ever drinking, all in mail, never clinking. Do you remember the answer to that one?
Fish.
Did you look at it?
Yes.
Okay.
I did.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, alive. But see, I feel like that alive without breath, like, fish do breathe. They just breathe underwater.
Yeah.
So that's a little misleading.
Well, it's a riddle.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. I really don't feel like arguing about it. I'll tell you that.
See, that's the other problem with people like us is we would be like, well, hold on just a second. Fish don't breathe underwater. It's like you don't respect the poetry of the riddles.
I don't know that you're right. You're right. We just take them. We're too literal about them. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah, I think you can be too literal, and you can be, and that's a problem with any kind of poetry, right? Is being too literalistic about it.
Yeah,
'cause that's not the point of poetry necessarily.
No, you're right. It's definitely not. So, actually, I just remembered my favorite one was the one about the legs. Where was it? Do you know what I'm talking about? So it's like a man sitting on a stool. Wait, is that in here?
It's in here, yeah.
Okay. But I'm not finding it.
I know. It must be embedded in a
paragraph. It's not set apart like the
Oh
other
yeah, there
one.
it is. It's right before this thing all things devours.
All things.
So it's like up a paragraph above that. It's towards the end of the riddle section.
Okay.
Here.
I'm not finding it. Sorry, people. We'll get it here. I promise. Too bad we don't have the same edition. You could just give me the page number. That would be helpful. Here it is. Okay, there it is.
Yeah.
No legs lay on one leg. 2 legs sat near on 3 legs. 4 legs got some. I really like that one.
I think the answer is hilarious because it's not like a simple.
It's not a simple answer. No,
it's like
yeah.
Oh, Fish on a little table, man at a table sitting on a stool, the cat has the bones.
That, of course, is the answer.
Durr.
Come on, people. I actually had to read it like 3 times and think about it. Like, okay, how does it? Oh, okay. Yeah, the fish has no legs. The man has 2 legs, and he's sitting at a table. He's sitting on a stool that has 3 legs, at a table that has 4, and then, no, wait, the cat has 4. See, it's very confusing.
Well, it's just funny to me because it's such a long answer to a riddle.
Yeah.
It's almost like a very literal answer to a riddle, as opposed to like most of the others, which are all like one word.
One word, yeah, like time.
Like a box without hinges, key or lid, yet golden treasure inside his head.
I liked that one too.
Right?
Yeah.
It cannot be seen, cannot be felt, cannot be heard, cannot be smelt. It lies behind stars and under hills and empty holes it fills. Comes first and follows after, ends life, kills laughter. That one's the dark.
How does dark kill laughter?
Because it's dark, it's scary.
Some people like the dark.
Well,
some people laugh in the dark.
I guess it won't kill their bad people.
Not necessarily.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
If you laugh in the dark, you're bad.
Okay. You heard it here first, folks.
That's right.
All right. Yeah.
That's what my old grandpappy used to say.
Is that what he used to say?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I like the time one too. I think that one was really good.
Yeah, that's good.
This thing all things devours, birds, beasts, trees, flowers, gnaws iron, bites steel, grinds hard stones to meal, slays kings, ruins town, and beats high mountain down. Time. It'll get us all in the end.
I like that Bilbo gets out of that one accidentally. Give me more time. Give me more time.
Right.
And all that comes out is time. Time.
That was a really fortunate coincidence.
Yeah.
On Bilbo's part.
Indeed.
I'm just impressed how, like, first of all, that Bilbo can think of these riddle. Like, I mean, he's probably just scared out of his wits, right?
Yeah.
He's like, basically, any moment could get eaten.
I know.
Right? And that his brain is still working this well, that he can think of these riddles and think of the answers to Gollum.
Well, but I don't think he's seriously going to let himself get eaten even if he loses, right? He's got his sword.
Well, no, he's not. But I'm just thinking he's got to be really, really, really scared and like super stressed out. Yeah. Really stressed out.
Yeah.
And I don't function well in those types of situations.
Well, it's interesting to me to think about like if this was actually to play this game was actually something that was a little bit like therapeutic for him at this moment, right? Because he doesn't know it, but he's playing this game with another Hobbit, right?
Yeah.
So this is the first moment that's been like he's back in the Shire and in any way for him in a while. Now, yeah, I mean, the time in Rivendell was a nice respite, of course. But, you know, he hasn't had contact with a Hobbit-like creature in a while. And even though Gollum is a wretch and, you know, and obviously is his enemy, wants to eat him, right? In the game they're playing, for a moment, he's probably able to forget about all the danger a little bit and just like have fun, right? Playing the game.
That's an interesting point. I hadn't thought of it that way.
So I'm not saying it's like how he would prefer to be spending his time. I'm just saying like there's a chance that it's like, you know, it's like when I saw this thing the other day. I didn't click through the article, but there was something about like you know, there's a car accident or something like that. This may be a little morbid to talk about, but there was a car accident, and I guess there was a dad and then a little toddler in it, and I think the dad died in the car accident, and so the police and everybody came, and I guess there was this viral picture of the police officer like took the little girl and was like talking to her and like started singing "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star" and everything with her, trying to kind of get her mind off of it, you know, off of the horror of what she had just been a part of, right? So maybe there's something a little bit like that to it, you know. It's just
it's a distraction.
It's a distraction from the reality that you find yourself in.
It kind of takes you to another place.
Yeah,
like transports.
But takes him back to his happy place, right?
Yeah.
To a certain degree.
Yeah.
So because I mean they're kind of fun, right? These riddles are kind of fun.
I gotta be honest.
Yeah.
They kind of make my brain hurt.
Yeah, well, they're hard for us because we don't do riddles a lot.
It's probably true. But they're fun. I really enjoyed reading about them.
Yeah.
I was just really impressed by how many times they went back and forth.
I do think it always strikes me as funny that like Gollum suddenly remembered thieving from nests long ago and sitting under the riverbank teaching his grandmother to suck eggs. He hissed.
Eggs.
I'm like, what is that actually like? Is that something people do? They suck eggs?
Sucking eggs.
That just sounds weird to me.
It sounds gross.
Yeah.
I know people eat raw eggs,
Well,
but I've never heard of people like sucking them from the shell.
So like, are you like sucking in order to like suck out the yolk?
I think what you do is you poke a little hole in the top and then suck it out. So it's almost like you drink it.
That's gross.
Yeah. Well, apparently Gollum didn't think it was gross, and neither did his grandmother.
Yeah, I mean, people, again, I think just things that people did a long time ago when everything wasn't as kind of normalized as it is today. I think people just did a lot more gross things. You live down on the farm and you eat, you're close to the land and you eat stuff that you may not have eaten, that we may not eat. So it might seem gross to us.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, there's all kinds of, I'm sure fishermen who, spend their, especially from 50, 60, 100 years ago, probably ate just about anything that came from the sea, right? Where I ate very few things that come from the sea, and they all seem gross to me. So,
right. Just a different time, a different way.
Well, you also think of like eggs, like can make you sick when they're uncooked, so that seems gross too. But probably back in that time, there wasn't as much stuff, that could go into them to make you sick. So anyway, I don't know, speculation here, but I was reading in the Annotated Hobbit, they have a little footnote about that, and apparently it was an old saying to like, go teach your grandmother, why don't you go teach your grandmother to suck eggs or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. Which was a way of saying like, oh, you think you know it all, huh?
Right. It's like giving advice to someone else about a subject which they are probably already familiar.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so Gollum is like remembering literally teaching his grandmother to suck eggs.
So that's really funny.
Yeah.
That it was a phrase. So that's got to be another one of Tolkien's like little funny things, right?
Yeah.
Like Gollum.
Well, that's what they were saying in this footnote is it's a, it looks like it's Tolkien kind of having a little fun with an old saying.
Yeah.
So. Because
I really don't know how you would suck an egg.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know like snakes eat them whole.
Yeah.
But. So yeah, he was probably just playing with that saying.
It must be what it is. You just put they poke a hole in it.
Like a pinhole
or
in it.
something like that, yeah.
Yeah. It's so gross.
Yeah, it's weird to us, but.
Yeah.
Whatevs.
Anyway.
There's also the old Johnny Cash song, the dirty old egg-sucking dog.
Never heard it.
Never heard it? I'm pretty sure, yeah. Let's see here. Pull it up here.
Of course. Guys, there's got to be at least one song reference per episode.
Well, it's been a while, actually, since I think we've had one.
Oh, is it? I know we talked about Mark Knopfler one on one of our more recent episodes, right?
Oh, yeah.
I forget which one. About a horse? No. Was it about a horse? I thought maybe not. But it was some Mark Knopfler song, I remember. But I don't think you played it on air.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway.
That's funny.
Live at Folsom Prison. Actually makes me kind of want to go back and listen to that album. But I'd heard that song before and I never knew like what is this egg-sucking dog? Like what?
Yeah.
It's just always seemed weird to me. I think I'd probably read it in The Hobbit before, so it was just bizarre. Anyway, we've probably talked about egg-sucking for far too long here.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
Time to move on.
Well, do you want to lead the podcast,
Time
Greta?
to move on.
I mean, you think this job's
Time
easy?
to get going. Huh?
You think this job's easy?
What lies ahead? We got no way of knowing.
Under my feet, baby. Grass is growing. Time to move on. Time to get going.
All right, take your own advice. Let's go.
Right
What's
on.
next?
So, how does Bilbo finally win?
He
this
asks
contest?
what's in his pockets.
Yes.
What do I have in my pocket? Which always bothers me. It really, really bothers me because it's not fair. It's not a riddle. It's not a riddle.
But that's the whole thing, right? He gets lucky twice in a row, right? Because he says time. He gets the other one by he means to say give me more time, but he just says time.
He blurs out the answer, right?
And Gollum, and so he gets the answer right, and then he gets to give the next one, and he says he's trying to think of one. He's out of riddles, and he tries to think of one, and he's thinking to himself, "What have I got in my pocket?" right?
Yeah.
And Gollum takes it to
hears
be
him. Yeah.
a riddle.
Right. But even Gollum pushes back a little bit. He's like, that's not a riddle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not a riddle. It's just a question. How am I supposed to know what you have in your pocket? But then Gollum's like, well, okay, fine. But I get 3 guesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, come on, Gollum. Like, stand up for yourself. That's still, it's not a riddle. Like, even if you get 3 guesses, that's still not fair. But again, Bilbo gets lucky.
Well, too bad you weren't there to be the referee.
Yeah. I would have definitely called a foul.
Riddle foul.
Riddle foul. I would have thrown my yellow flag, held up my red card, blown my whistle.
Do you think the riddle umpire has question marks all over his suit, like that guy that used to be on the late night commercials where he'd be selling his book with all the different ways to get federal money? Do you remember that guy?
Yes.
He had the question mark
probably
suit.
does. Instead of stripes, it's just going to be question marks, black and white question marks.
Right.
Yep. But I also understand that if this hadn't gone through, that Bilbo, our story, would not have progressed in the same way, probably.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, this is cutthroat, right? It's not really about. See, in the original version, they talk. There's all this talk about the sacredness of the riddle game, right? And Gollum is like all about the sacredness of the riddle game, right? He's like, I dare's not, break the.
Isn't he still in this? I feel like they both still. At least
they both are, but they're both willing to break it in order to get what they want. Too,
okay.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's harder to blame Bilbo because he's talking about his life, as opposed to Gollum, who's
just wants to eat.
wants to eat something different than goblins and fish.
Yeah.
So I do think it's funny when Gollum is like thinking about he's like, well, what do I normally keep in my pocket?
Well, that's smart, right?
It is. But it's just funny what he thinks of. He's like, he thought of all the things he kept in his own pockets: fish bones, goblin's teeth, wet shells, a bit of bat wing, a sharp stone to sharpen his fangs on, and other nasty things. I just like that, a bit of bat wing.
A bit of bat wing. Just a piece.
Well, it's like, you never know when you're going to need a bit of bat wing.
Never know.
You
never know when the craving might strike.
Right.
For just a little taste of bat.
Wet shells, goblin's teeth. It's as bad as Gollum is. Like, there's just something like kind of charming and cute about him.
Endearing. There's something endearing about him. I agree.
We talked about that on a lot of Lord of the Rings episodes, and you're like, it feels wrong to like Gollum so much, but you just can't help it.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
like, he's pitiful and pathetic and horrible, but he's just kind of funny too. Like, he is funny. Yeah,
he is funny. He definitely is funny. Yeah. But I remember laughing about that too. I like a sharp stone to sharpen his fangs on. Like, well, yeah. Wouldn't everybody carry that around?
Have you seen my bit of bat wing? I thought it was in my pocket.
Well, what bit was it? Was it the left wing or the right wing?
Nobody keeps the left wing in their pocket.
It's going to be the right.
What are you talking about? Come on.
I do wonder what he would use that for. Like what?
I have no idea.
I wonder if it was kind of like some people like what is it? A rabbit, like a rabbit tail or a rabbit foot? What is it? What is like that good luck charm?
Oh, rabbit foot.
Is it a rabbit foot? So I wonder if it was like a rabbit foot for him. Like,
maybe.
I wonder if it was like a little good luck charm or something.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyway. But he does. You gotta admire. I feel like his actual guesses are pretty good.
Yeah, he actually tries to get in 4 because he says the last one. He says string or nothing, right?
Right.
So he actually tries to get in 4 guesses.
Crafty.
And both are wrong, of course, and so he wins. And Gollum has to show him the way out. But Gollum's plan is he's like, give me 1 minute. I'll be right back. So Gollum's plan is to go get his ring, his magic ring that makes him invisible. Right. Allows him to sneak up on people and then kill Bilbo.
Yep.
Bilbo, though, kind of thinks better of it, right? He hears Gollum. He hears Gollum looking for it, and he hears Gollum get really upset when he can't find it. My birthday present. It came to me on my birthday, my precious. So he had always said to himself. Oh, wait, I'm looking at the wrong spot. Should have marked that. Suddenly, yeah, there we go. Suddenly Bilbo heard a screech. It sent a shiver down his back. Gollum was cursing and wailing away in the gloom, not very far off by the sound of it. He was on his island, scrabbling here and there, searching and seeking in vain. Where is it? Where is it? Bilbo heard him crying. Lost it is, my precious. Lost, lost. Curse us and crush us, my precious is lost. So Bilbo eventually realizes that that's that he's talking about the ring,
right?
That he's talking about this thing
in his pocket,
and he realizes he's probably just made Gollum even madder.
Yep.
And then Gollum realizes, wait a minute, you have it in your pocket, right? That's what you had in your pocket all this time.
Yep.
So Gollum is all mad at him, and then Bilbo, of course, realizes this, puts on the ring, and starts to run. Right?
Yep.
Starts to run. Gollum comes chasing after him, and eventually Gollum leads him out of the cave.
Right. But Bilbo doesn't know. Obviously doesn't know what the ring can do.
Right.
And he realizes eventually it's making him invisible.
Yeah.
Because Gollum gets super close to him, but doesn't do anything to him.
Right.
He can't see him. Exactly.
But he all throughout he's calling it his birthday present, right? Gollum is. The last I think thing I want to highlight in the chapter is towards the end when Bilbo is Gollum's actually in front of him. Bilbo's got his ring on, and Bilbo realizes he has to kind of make a jump for it, and so it says Bilbo almost stopped breathing and went stiff himself. He was desperate. He must get away out of this horrible darkness while he had any strength left. He must fight. He must stab the foul thing, put its eyes out, kill it. It meant to kill him. No, not a fair fight. He was invisible now. Gollum had no sword. Gollum had not actually threatened to kill him or tried to yet. And he was miserable, alone, lost. A sudden understanding of pity mixed with horror welled up in Bilbo's heart. A glimpse of endless, unmarked days without light or hope of betterment. Hard stone, cold fish, sneaking and whispering. All these thoughts passed in a flash of a second. He trembled, and then quite suddenly, in another flash, as if lifted by a new strength and resolve, he leaped. I just like that because, you have this moment of pity, right? He looks at Gollum and he pities him.
Yeah.
It's a powerful moment.
You're absolutely right, it is.
Because anybody could probably feel justified in would probably feel justified if they were Bilbo in killing Gollum right here.
Yeah.
Because Gollum is obviously trying to kill him.
Right.
And he might be standing in the way of his freedom, but he just can't. Bilbo looks at him and he empathizes.
He does. Yeah. And he realizes that it, to his credit, that it wouldn't be a fair fight. Mm-hmm. Because Gollum couldn't see him.
Well, and there's this pity in there of this poor creature.
Yeah. Nothing to look forward to, alone.
And I have to think that the fact that they just spent all this time together telling riddles to each other increased the sympathy there.
I'm sure it did. Because I think probably in those riddles, through that riddle game, Bilbo, in a way, was able to see past that, that decrepit exterior. And so, who Gollum might once have been.
So maybe if we all just had a day where we all did riddles with one another, the world would be a better place.
It could very well be. Mm-hmm. It could be. Yeah. You could get to know people a lot
then
better and see past the
before
exterior.
We kill each other, we might be like, wait a minute, we played riddles one time together.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be killing each other.
Has a way of bonding two people together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, but in all seriousness, I do think, I do think you're right about that. I think that Riddle Game did serve to help Bilbo kind of, see more than what was just on the outside. Mm-hmm. It actually, it made him realize that I don't think he realizes I don't think he's yet realized that Gollum was once a creature like him.
Right.
But I think the Riddle Game made it easier for him to think that was possible.
Yeah.
And to not necessarily see himself in Gollum, but maybe to see some similarities between them.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
No, I think that's beautiful. And of course we know in the Lord of the Rings that Frodo has a similar moment with Gollum.
Well, right? And Gandalf has to remind him when they first realize that Gollum is following them. Gandalf has to remind him that Bilbo showed Gollum pity, right? Right. And because Frodo actually says, it's a pity Bilbo didn't kill him when he had a chance, right?
Right.
And Gandalf says it was pity that stayed Bilbo's hand, right?
Right.
So it's this virtuous thing, right? It's virtuous to have that sense when dealing with others.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think people, you can hear people throw that in people's face. So I pity you or something like that. Like that's not exactly what we're talking about. It's like
it's more the empathy.
It's more of the empathy, and I think that's the true sense of pity that we're talking about.
Right. It's a charitable pity.
Right. So it's a pity that we can't dwell on that longer.
Yeah.
But we need to move on.
Agreed.
Thief. Baggins, we hates it forever. So Gollum is pretty upset about this. But the good news is that Bilbo finds his way to the back door of the Misty Mountains.
Right.
And because he's wearing the ring, he's able to scooch by the goblin guards, although it's kind of a close call.
Yes.
But he does, in fact, escape out the other side
after getting stuck in the door.
Right.
That was a funny mental picture for me.
Yeah, well, it pops off his buttons.
Yep.
Right, which is just like insult to injury here.
It is, but in the end, the small price to pay for your life.
Yes.
So, I mean, if I had a choice between losing some buttons and escaping with my life, I'd give up the buttons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Gollum will find the buttons and he can put them in his pockets next to the bat wings.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the
fish eyes.
That he uses to sharpen his fangs.
Right.
Add to his collection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Happy ending.
Happy ending indeed. All right. Did I miss anything, Greta, that you thought was important?
I think you did a really good job putting that episode together, John.
Good.
I think you led our conversation very dignifiedly. There it is. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 syllables in haiku.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 syllables in haiku.
Boom. So I just want to say something super quick about haiku.
Okay.
Because this was kind of funny. So I'm reading this other book. In which it's about nuns, and at a convent in England, they have some Japanese sisters come to stay with them, and so they're like kind of learning more about Japanese culture or whatever from these Japanese nuns. And one of the things they talk about are haiku, and they're talking about this one sister that really wants to learn, an English sister that wants to learn to write haiku, and so she's studying the art of haiku writing. And they say in this book, it's a good thing she's studying this, and she should study it for a year or more because haikus are not easy to write. And I was like, oh man, have we just totally destroyed are we making a mockery of a haiku?
I hope not making a mockery.
I hope not either.
I don't pretend like any of the haiku that we've written are actually great haiku.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We're just kind of, it's having fun with it.
Having fun with it.
Yeah. Okay. With the form.
Okay, good. So I was like, I just jumped into writing haiku without studying.
It's a lot easier to crank out than the weekly sonnet. So
this is true.
That's a little more difficult just in terms of the rhyming skill and everything. But
there's definitely an art.
I'm not going to put out my book of, Tolkien haiku and be like world-renowned haikuist.
World-renowned.
Yeah.
Got it. I just thought it was funny because I was like, I guess I'm maybe not thinking enough about the haiku I'm writing, but I'm doing my best.
You're just a bad person.
I guess so. But I'm still doing my best.
Try again later.
Oh, okay.
All right.
We're going to do rock, paper, scissors? All right.
It does talk about how important it is to start off by doing rock, paper, scissors.
That's true, it does. Okay. At least we got that part right.
Yeah.
Okay. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Ah, I win.
A little chess match there.
All right. I'll go first. All right. This is for chapter 5. Okay. His wits and his way. Bilbo has lost them both. Or has he, my precious?
has he?
My precious.
Good.
Precious. I can't do it. I can't do the precious.
Yeah. Well, none of us are Andy Serkis.
That's true. All right, your turn.
Also in a hole in the ground, small and slimy, Gollum, cave dweller.
Oh. Oh, also in a hole, like Bilbo.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yep.
Very good. Very, very good.
All right.
I like that.
I think that's a wrap on this episode.
I think you're right. I think it is a wrap.
Special thanks to our patrons. You know what? I think I forgot to mention our executive producer, Sharon Burgess, at the beginning of this episode. So sorry about that, Sharon. Sharon Burgess is our illustrious executive producer.
Yes. Thank you.
For this episode. And we want to thank our other patrons as well. Chuck Farnung, David Dickinson, Bill Richardson, Katie Knorr, Al Taylor, Joseph Maimone, Michael Martini, Brian Orr, Emilio Perea, Eric Bissett, Kelly Knotts, Amanda Kaiser, Kate Watts, Daniel Delaney, Chris Loftus, Gianni DeMaya, Per Brenner, and William Sutherland. Thank you all.
You guys are the best.
Thanks to all our listeners, and we appreciate you listening.
Absolutely.
We shall talk at you next time.
Yes. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.
Please remember to check out truemyths.org and TolkienRoad.com for show notes and plenty of other Tolkien goodness. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, please leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback on iTunes or your podcast app of choice, and stop by our Facebook page to say hey. On the next episode, we'll continue our journey through The Hobbit with Chapter 6, Out of the Frying Pan and Into the Fire. Please send correspondence to TolkienRoadPodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and until next time, the road goes ever on.